Or then in our news, new investment opportunities for Barbados following Prime Minister Motley's recent overseas trips. Talks to continue to establish new transport protocols. Barbadians weighing their options when it comes to which fish to eat on Good Friday. And in sports, Hayley Matthews recovers from injury to take her place for the tours of Ireland and England.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC News Night, starting now.
Top story we are hearing tonight of new investment opportunities for Barbados, and they are coming after Prime Minister Mia Motley's trip to North America, which she has described as very hectic but also highly successful. Our Ryan Broom attended a news conference today with the Prime Minister and joins us now. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening, Lisa. Good evening, viewers. That's right. The Prime Minister says the island has been able to explore new strategic investment opportunities while also promoting its new corporate tax system that came into effect in January. The news follows a week-long trip in which she, cabinet ministers and other government officials held important high-level meetings with entities that included global banks and other key players in the financial services industry. The trip included stops in Montreal, Toronto, Washington, D.C. and Miami. And the Prime Minister says the team also met with the International Monetary Fund.
Canada, as you know, has traditionally been Barbados' key partner in the conduct of international business. And we therefore met with all of the major accounting firms. In fact, each meeting would have lasted, about an hour and a half, 2 hours, in order to be able to share with them the journey that we've made thus far and what we are intending to promote. Because as you would appreciate, our corporation tax state is going to be very much largely driven not just by what we do domestically, but what we can achieve globally.
The Prime Minister says they would have also met with all of the major accounting firms, including PwC, KPMG, EY, and others.
I also would have addressed just over 250 tax account executives from the Tax Executive Institute of Canada, which provided me with an excellent opportunity to be able to share what Barbados' offerings are now in order to drive business to this country. We would also have met in Toronto with all three major Canadian banks in Barbados. As you know, in October, November last year, we engaged in domestic debt restructuring. And to that extent, it was absolutely critical that we touch base with their headquarters again.
And interestingly, there's a very high level of interest from Canadian entities to invest in a medical marijuana industry in Barbados. That's according to the Prime Minister. She says it was a topic that repeatedly came up at a number of meetings that she and other senior government officials held during the recent trip that included stops in Canada. Now, she says government is already working on a regulatory framework that would facilitate medical marijuana.
Many of the companies coming out of Canada, in fact, need an opportunity to be able to ensure that if they domicile in Barbados, their business enterprises for the rest of the world, that they can do so without any difficulties. And in fact, our ability to indicate that the Cabinet had agreed to this policy framework and that the Attorney General, along with the Minister of Agriculture, are now working with the regulatory framework for medical cannabis is one that is likely to garner significant business to the country.
And Lisa, the Prime Minister has also revealed that the process to conclude debt restructuring negotiations for Barbados is continuing, and more details on the external debt issue will be issued in a few weeks. She says the external debt restructuring was also one of the issues addressed during her recent trip with other government officials, specifically their stop in Washington, D.C.
That is a process, as you know, and that process continues, although I'm hopeful that we are closer to an end than we were. And the government will be making statements on that in a few weeks' time, and that's all I'll say at this stage on that. But that process was a critical meeting that we had to have while in Washington, D.C. as well.
There you have it, Lisa, and viewers can see the PM's full news conference tonight at 3 minutes after 9 this evening. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Well, officials from the Ministry of Transport, Transport Board, Transport Authority and other key entities met with owners of PSVs earlier today, and that was to thrash out key issues related to a proposed joint transportation system that will see selected PSVs operating under the Transport Board's brand. That meeting was held at the Barbados Workers Union Solidarity House headquarters as a continuation to yesterday's emergency transportation meeting that was chaired by the Prime Minister. Today's meeting started around 9:30 this morning and concluded just after 2 this afternoon. Public Relations Officer of the Alliance of Owners of Public Transport, or AOPT, Mark Haynes, spoke briefly with CBC News on the sidelines of the meeting about some of the key issues that were down for discussion.
We brought owners today with a view to going through the agreement subject to finality. So persons will concur with some aspects of the proposed agreement and some may not concur. So out of this meeting, we hope that persons who have an interest in going in the program with government in an effort to move the island's commuters, that this meeting will form the basis for that, the whole setup of the program. So it's going through line by line by line so that everybody gets to understand what you're going into, what the agreement is like, who benefits.
And the various sides are all expected to hold a follow-up meeting to continue their discussions on key issues, but an official date for that next meeting has not been set as yet. Well, the National Union of Public Workers is still working to ensure that the dozens of workers sent home from the Ministry of Transport and Works get their money. In giving an update on that situation, Acting Deputy General Secretary Wayne Waldron says since being retrenched, 83 workers are yet to receive a cent from the government. He says that they are in constant contact with the Ministry of the Civil Service. Mr. Waldron says many of those workers have more than 10 years of service, and this has presented a unique challenge. He says government has agreed to advance the gratuity and store the pensions of this particular category of worker.
The situation with workers with 10 years and over, they automatically become pensionable and they are entitled to a pension and a gratuity. Now, technically speaking, because these workers are pensionable and have the same rights as appointed officers, these group of persons should not have been retrenched. It presents issues to how you treat these workers in terms of reorganization and reclassification. And therefore, if you are reorganizing the service and you are dealing with pensionable persons, there should be issues like options, alternatives, comparable posts.
Mr. Waldron is also asking the creditors of these workers to bear with them for a little longer as the former workers wait for their money.
These workers who have been loyal persons honoring their credit arrangements, we ask them to hold a bit more strain. These workers is no fault of their own. They never anticipated that at 10-year service there will be one that will be caught in the net for retrenchment. We remain hopeful that very soon that the Ministry of Civil Service will be able to conclude this exercise of having these workers having the payment of a gratuity advance.
Well, with the scarcity of flying fish and a few hours left until Good Friday, Barbadians are seeking out all types of seafood as they strive to uphold a well-known tradition. Our Rianne Phillips tells us more.
Whether in a package or whether in a can, Barbadians have been doing their utmost to ensure they get their fish for their Good Friday meals. There was a steady flow of people in the Bridgetown Fisheries Complex, but it wasn't as profitable as fisherfolk expected.
They're mainly looking for flying fish, red snappers and turpies, but as you know, the flying fish is very scarce. They are $30 a pack and there are not any. But you're having some dolphin, you're having the turpids and other stuff.
Things picking up, but the main thing everybody looking for is the flying fish, and we don't have none of them. But things picking up and looking good so far.
However, the customers we spoke with say they are looking to get the best deal for their money.
I buy dolphin and I buy turpid. I love turpid because it have a lot of meat on it. It don't have much bones on it.
The wife wants some fish, so I decided to just come and get some. Say that as the cookies home, my house husband. And that's all I could tell you.
Any particular fish you're looking for?
What's a turpid or I see red snapper there, that's what you can buy. Kind of whole money is.
With the scarcity of flying fish, some will be adding different types of seafood to their plates. Commercial seafood diver Kamal Abdul-Jabbar has seen an increase in business this year.
Some people do not want to go into fish, so they're going alternative. So what they're doing now is they order things like conch, octopus, and lobster. Some people go as far as ask for sea egg, turtle, whale, you name it, they're just asked.
On the other hand, some are opting for canned fish from the supermarkets.
Up till last night, we had a good pass-through. Fish sales have been up because we have to be replenishing this here nearly every minute of the day. A lot of people like to enter the tuna, but the mackerel is kind of not moving that fast, but people prefer these types of fish.
Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
What's Trending is brought to you by Trident Insurance. We treat you like family.
And Sharika is here now in our social media corner. Good evening, Sharika.
Good evening, Lisa. And here's what's trending. Prime Minister Mia Motley yesterday made it clear that she's unhappy with the state of affairs in the transport sector. She insists that commuters must be better served. Glenn Burke seems to agree. He says collectively there are so many government and privately owned PSVs in service that it doesn't make sense that people still have to wait hours to get home or work. Debbie Brown believes Prime Minister Motley is trying her best to move the country forward. She completely agrees with the PM as she says the problems identified are why she hardly goes to Bridgetown, because it's too stressful to get back home. Now, if you're following news on the international scene, you would know that Taiwan was rocked by a 6.1 magnitude earthquake earlier. Thankfully, we here in Barbados have never experienced anything like that. But these videos recorded during that quake in Taiwan give us a first-hand look at how things unfolded. Some pretty scary stuff there. Well, a United Airlines pilot is considering filing a $1 million lawsuit against the city of Denver after he was hauled out of his hotel in handcuffs. Why? The man, Andrew Collins, was in his hotel room in his birthday suit on a call. But what he didn't know was people in the airport across from the hotel could see him. This body cam footage shows the moment police arrested Collins. Take a look.
You got any weapons on you? No, sir. You got any weapons in this room? No, sir. See if that's it. So we got some interesting photographs of you standing in that window. Sir, you're under arrest. Okay, for what? Indecent exposure? Really? Yes, sir.
You might have noticed that based on the timestamp in the top right-hand corner of that video, this incident actually happened last September, but Mr. Collins had to wait 6 whole months for his day in court. The judge dismissed the case, but Mr. Collins was suspended from work for that time and is now on a mission to repair his reputation. Now, a bit closer to home, Rihanna's father has finally responded to allegations that he's trying to cash in on his superstar daughter's name and image without her permission. In January, the umbrella hit maker, real name Robin Fenty, filed a suit against her dad, Ronald Fenty, and his business associate, Moses Perkins, claiming that they had purposefully used the family name in the company's brand to try and solicit business on behalf of the singer. Well, Mr. Fenty has hit back, dismissing the accusations and insisting he shouldn't have to ask his daughter for permission to use his own last name commercially. He's also arguing that no damage was caused to Rihanna's business endeavors, and so he shouldn't have to pay her anything, and he is seeking to have the suit dismissed immediately. And we'll certainly be following that story. And that's what's trending for this evening. You can find us easily on Facebook, Instagram, and by email. Lisa, I have to get your opinion on that one with the pilot in the hotel room. What say you?
Of all the things you could have asked me, I guess the lesson there is just keep the drapes closed.
I suppose I can agree with that.
Good advice. Thank you so much, Sharika. Amid concerns of the cost of alternatives to plastics, government has signaled its willingness to work in addressing that factor. And that's the word from Minister of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy, Kirk Humphrey. He was at the time addressing the first of 2 town hall meetings at the Graydon Sealy Secondary School aimed at sensitizing members of the public and key stakeholders about the ban on petrol-based single-use plastics. And Barbados announced the plastics ban from April the 1st.
The duties on a lot of these containers already real low, like a lot of them is at 5%. So, and that what is really costly is the unit cost of the individual items that are here. Some of the containers carry a 20% duty, but that is what I believe was the cost of the styrofoam that came from outside of the region anyway. So I feel that we need to have a conversation, a serious conversation about how do we now move forward from here.
And Mr. Humphrey has given the assurance that there are alternatives on the island to all of the items covered in the ban.
There's not a case where you can't get a container that you're looking for. It is here. And I've seen and we've tested containers with pudding and sauce, so we don't eat it. We've tested containers with hot soup, which I eat a lot of. We've tested containers with the food that, the Rastaman food. I bought food recently from the Chinese guy, my friend, I won't call his business because I don't want to advertise it. But he told me he recently started using containers and it works. So there are containers here that work.
People with concerns about the well-being of a child or children in their community will now have easy access to help for them. This as the Faith Marshall Harris Sandy Lane Charitable Trust Helpline was launched yesterday. The 24-hour service will provide an avenue for people to call in with concerns about the welfare of children. Founder Faith Marshall Harris says they will be working with both government agencies and non-governmental organizations to carry out their mandate. And this will include emergency short-term assistance through counseling and material needs, as well as referrals for long-term aid.
Our main focus after that will be to refer what we've heard to other agencies who can take on the long-term help. And those other agencies will include the Child Care Board, the Child Care Board being the primary and premier child protection agency as mandated by law, and the Juvenile Liaison Scheme, the National Council on Substance Abuse, they're all here with us, the Welfare Department. We will be liaising and referring matters as they come to us.
And Ms. Marshall Harris says with the establishment of the helpline, Barbados joins 145 other countries who have signed on to the UN's Convention on the Rights of the Child. She revealed that over 24 social workers had come on board to help man that helpline.
Pivotal to this project, very pivotal, there are a lot of them here, are the 30 social workers from the Barbados Association of Professional Social Workers have volunteered their time and talent. And they will man the helpline on a 24-hour basis and will be the lifeblood and frontline of the project.
A government minister has expressed concerns about the level of crimes committed against young people. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Cynthia Ford says this trend can be linked to the breakdown of the family structure in Barbados.
This exponential rise and exploitation in crime of our children and our youth is a social issue that necessitates the intervention of government, civil society, non-governmental organizations and others to assist in the fight to protect our children and to bring these perpetrators to justice.
Minister Ford says the well-being of the country's youth is everyone's business.
This exponential rise and exploitation in crime of our children and our youth is a social issue that necessitates the intervention of government, civil society, non-governmental organizations and others to assist in the fight to protect our children and to bring these perpetrators to justice.